How do you parent so that you have a peaceful home? That would be so nice. Mended light. So I sent out to our Mended Light community here on YouTube and our community post a question, ask me anything about parenting. We got so many responses. This is going to be a whole series. Today, I want to talk about parenting for a peaceful home. If your home has a lot of conflict, has a lot of fighting, has a lot of arguing, a lot of disobedience on the children's part, leading to anger and irritability on your part, this video is your jam. So let's do this. First question, or first greatest challenge. My kids do not listen to me or do what I tell them to do and are sometimes disrespectful. When I call them out on it and tell them to behave, I'm labeled as a bad parent by them and even by my spouse. If they actually say you're a bad parent, they're wrong. You're not a bad parent. You are focusing your energies in a not productive direction. Let's put it that way. And that's not just me like cushioning the blow. That's what we call in the therapy a positive reframe. And I mean it. You are focusing your energies in a direction that's not productive. So I'm going to give you some loving feedback. You say, my kids are not listening to me and they don't do what I tell them to do. So first of all, and I know this is a hard thing to hear because I was having a conversation with Alicia a short while ago about one of our kids. And I said to her, listen, in the long term, I'm thrilled that he is so strong-willed and stubborn. In the long term, I'm thrilled because if he focuses his energy on doing good things, he'll be unstoppable. And in the long term, I know that as part of his development, that he's going to push back because against the things that I say and the things that I ask him to do, because he has his own thoughts, he has his own feelings, he has his own desires. In the long term, it's a wonderful thing that he questions everything because he wants to know and because he wants to understand, and also because he's really interested in justice and making sure things are fair. And so he questions my decisions constantly because he wants to make sure, what are the motives? What are the intentions? Is this the right thing to be doing? And in the long term, I know all of this is a good thing. In the short term, it would really go so much easier if he would just do what I say when I say to do it without questioning me.
You see, if everyone would just do what I say, we wouldn't have any problems.
Those two things are at odds because, like, day to day, I just want obedience. Day to day, I just want obedience and respect.
You just got to do exactly what I say.
Okay.
Did I say okay?
No.
No. What did I say?
Do exactly what you say.
Exactly.
And when you say, my kids don't do what I tell them to do, your kids are autonomous beings. That means they have free will, they have agency. And any being with free will doesn't like to be caged. It doesn't like to be told what to do, including you. If you have people in your life who try and tell you what to do, I imagine you don't like it very much, and it's no different for children. It comes down to, what is your role as a parent? It may feel like day to day, my role is to keep this ship sailing and functioning. And what I need is sailors and soldiers who obey my orders without question. What is your actual role as a parent? Is to raise people who make good choices. And in order to make good choices, they have to make choices. Your role is not to tell them what to do. Your role is to give them choices with consequences and let them choose. And you just follow through on the consequences. That's it. Well, and you have final say in a lot of things because there has to be structure in the home. But to hear them, to hear their wants, to hear their needs, to hear their thoughts, and be willing to accept influence from them and be willing to make adjustments and changes so that they have a say in how they are raised. Not the final say, because they're minors and their brains are still developing and you have a responsibility for them. But there's two extremes. You have complete say over how they're raised and they just need to sit there and shut up and take it. Or it's chaos and they get to do whatever they want, which they're not ready for that level of responsibility yet either. And so that's the middle ground, is that you listen and you accept influence and you're willing to make adjustments and make concessions and make changes. But at the end of the day, you also have final say. And when I say final say, it's not about what they must do. It's about what the expectations are and what the consequences are for compliance and non-compliance. Here's what happens. If you are trying to get them to do what you say, power struggle happens. Trust me, I know.
Been there, done that.
Power struggle happens, and then you get into this, well, they're telling me no. I've asked them to do this. They're telling me no. Now they have to do it, because if they don't do it, then they're established dominance, and then it's chaos, and I've lost control of the house. Does that sound familiar? Sidestep that way of thinking entirely. Sidestep power struggles entirely. They don't have to do what you say, but whatever they choose, there's a consequence attached to it. Consequences that they want, usually tied to privileges, right? And consequences that they don't want, tied to a loss of privileges. You say, when I call them on it and tell them to behave, my friend, stop trying to control the situation. Yes, hold the mirror up. Yes, hold them accountable. Yes, tell them what they're doing and how it's affecting the home, how it's affecting you, how it's affecting them. But telling a child to behave generally doesn't work. Telling a child you can do A or B, A comes with this privilege, B comes with the loss of this privilege, and then letting them behave how they choose and then following through on the consequence, that takes self-discipline, because they're going to beg you for leniency. They're going to beg you for another chance. They're going to beg you for mercy. But you can help them to see that choices have consequences, but stop trying to control them. My kids asked tough questions about my divorce. He cheated, he left, and he married the other woman. We're co-parenting now, but he continues to spin his narrative very openly with our kids. Those questions can be triggering, and I'm determined to answer their questions in ways that respect their relationship with their father without lying to them. Is there a sweet spot here? I guess here's the question. Do you feel like they're spinning stories because your ex is telling out and out lies, or they're making you look bad? Or is what they're saying just something you don't agree with because it's not your perspective on the story? Two different things. If it's something you don't agree with because you don't share that perspective, they may not be spinning stories. They may very well be sharing what their perspective is and how they think and feel about things. And in that case, what to tell your kids is, well, your father has his perspective on what happened, and I have mine. And as long as his perspective and your perspective don't involve throwing each other under the bus or speaking bad about one another, go ahead and share your perspective. If, however, your former partner is telling out and out lies or saying things to make you look bad while or trying to gain sympathy for themselves, I would have a very clear conversation with my ex-spouse. I do not appreciate the things you're telling our kids. I have no desire to make you look bad in front of them. I have no desire to tarnish your name. I have no desire to make you the bad guy in this in their eyes. But I need you to understand what you're saying is hurtful to me, and it potentially could turn them against me, and I will not have that. So what happened between you and I can stay between you and I, and we can tell the kids, listen, it didn't work out. We both love you, and that's what we're focused on. And they don't need to know our story until they're adults. Or if you're going to persist in this, then I'm going to share my perspective and my side of things. I'm not threatening you. I'm just letting you know, because I'm not going to be thrown under the bus here. Now, some might say to turn the other cheek and just let it be. And in a lot of cases, when people are speaking ill of you, I think that's a fine route to take. When it comes to your kids, if your ex-partner is making you the villain of the story and cutting your legs out from under you as a parent or undermining your parental authority, then I would issue a cease and desist, like I just said. And if they don't, then go ahead and tell your kids, your dad cheated on me, guys. He cheated and he left. I'm not saying he's a terrible father. I'm not even saying he's a terrible person. I'm saying what he did to me was terrible and hurt me deeply. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that he didn't. Again, this is something you can say if he refuses to back off. Some people are malicious and strategic and nasty, and you got to be careful with those people, and you got to be strategic yourself, not necessarily nasty, but strategic. And some people just like to vent and be heard and be validated. And those people often throw other people under the bus without realizing that they're doing it. And when you call them out on it and tell them this is what's happening, he may change his approach. I would especially love to hear from anyone who's gone through something similar in the comments, because I haven't experienced what I'm counseling about there personally, What I'm counseling from is my place of experience as a counselor, my knowledge of the research about human relationships, right? That sort of thing. But if any of you have experienced this dynamic personally, let us know in the comments below what your advice would be. For those of you who are navigating a divorce, we've got a course on our membership site, Hope After Divorce, where we guide you through this process to a place of peace, personal peace and co-parenting peace. And that is a course that you can take on our membership site. There's 50% off a monthly membership right now. Link is right here. The last 3 years have been so stressful. This is 2023. So yeah, last 3 years have been so stressful starting in 2020 that it seems impossible to get back to a healthy equilibrium, which would allow a person to more easily keep themselves calm when being triggered by their kids. Like if you're normally run at a 4 or 5 stress level and flare-ups push you to a 6 or an 8. But ever since 2020, it feels like everyone runs at a 7 or an 8. So any flare-ups push you to a 9 or a 10. And it feels like there's never a chance to get calmed down again. Fight or flight is always engaged and cortisol levels are always too high. I relate to this. I like the stovetop example. If you've got water in a pot on the stove and it needs to be set at a 9 to boil over, and if you're sitting at a 3 or a 4, it's going to take a lot to boil over. What happens if you're sitting at a 7 or an 8? Just a nudge makes you boil over. So the first thing to do is to self-soothe and engage in self-care. I had an experience with this week. I realized that I was snapping at my kids and sniping at my kids, and that I was short-tempered and mean and responding with a tone that was ugly. And I realized it's because I was so stressed and so overwhelmed, and there was so much on my plate. And most importantly, I wasn't taking time for me. So you know what I did? 2 nights in a row, I slept longer than normal by a lot. I caught up on my sleep. I went to the gym. I got a massage. I got a haircut. I did some things that I needed to do for me. And I went and got one of my favorite meals. And I did all of that. And then I was like, okay, I'm able to parent now. And I'm able to be calm and to be fun and to engage and to be patient. Never underestimate the power of self-care and self-soothing. The most important thing you can do if you're sitting at a 7 or an 8 and you're going to bump up to a 9 is bring yourself down to a 3 and recognize that no one's going to do that for you. You have to meet your own needs, and you have to do it purposefully. Sitting there and doom scrolling on your phone and eating a lot of junk food isn't going to make you feel any better. It's just going to distract you. Take steps to take care of yourself and to bring your stress levels down so you can meet your children with love, kindness, and patience. Single parenting, definitely. Dual military family and have had to single parent a lot. Also, positive parenting would be helpful. My kids are very strong-willed, and at times their wills trigger things for me. When it comes to single parenting, I could spend an entire video or series of videos or an entire course on single parenting. I'm going to keep it simple here. There's a reason why throughout history, we've had 2 parents, because parenting is a lot and maintaining a home is a lot, and working and teaching and playing and cleaning up and overseeing the cleaning up and getting people to do their work and to do their chores and to treat each other well and to take accountability when they don't treat each other well. It's a lot. It's a lot when there's 2 of you. And I don't say this to guilt or shame single parents, quite the opposite. I say this to say that if you're a single parent and you feel like you're struggling, be kind and gentle to yourself. You are heroically doing a job that is often filled by 2 people. You are heroically soldiering through, and you're not always going to get it right. Lead with love, lead with accountability. Focus on the most important things and let the other things slide. You got this. When it comes to positive parenting, strong-willed children whose wills trigger you, oh, I can relate to that.
I must say, I know how it feels.
I have several very strong-willed children, one of whom's personality is very, very different from mine. And in a moment of anger, I told him, to my shame, that he was the greatest stress in my life. And when I calmed down, I realized that's not true. And that's a hell of a thing to put on a child's shoulders. And it was an ugly thing to say. And I went to him and I apologized and I said, "You're not the greatest stressor in my life. I'll be honest, our relationship at the moment is the greatest stressor in my life. But that's as much me as it is you. We're very different and we have different needs, and we approach getting our needs met differently, and we rub up against each other in uncomfortable ways. And I imagine that our relationship is very stressful for you and hard for you. And he said, yeah, it is. And we sat in a moment in mutual empathy for how hard our relationship is on each other. And I changed the climate of that just by owning that there's not anything wrong with his strong will. And I told him as much. I said, listen, you're stubborn and strong-willed. Sometimes that's hard for me, but you focus that on good things and you're going to be such an unstoppable force for good as you grow older. And I'm so proud of you. It's just a struggle for me as a parent. And thank you for your patience with me as I learn how to parent you. These are the types of conversations that you can have. When it comes to strong-willed children, it's all about they want to have a voice in their own life. They want to be able to make their own choices. So show them how, right? That you can have more rights when you're more responsible. And I want to help you get there. So let's outline a plan. You want to be able to do X, Y, or Z thing? Okay, here's what I need from you to see that you're ready for it. And then work towards it together. As much as possible when you're crafting choices with consequences with this child, do it together. You have final say because you're the adult, but let them have a voice in the process. The more they feel like they're heard, that their perspectives and opinions are considered and not just dismissed, that they actually have an influence over how things play out, the calmer they're going to be. They just don't want to be controlled. A toddler who doesn't listen, no matter how you parent them, tough, gentle, middle ground. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm 42 years old. My stepson was 3 when I married Alicia. And since then, we've had 4 together. So I know a thing or two about raising young kids. And all of our kids have strong personalities. I don't want to be trite and say this too shall pass, but this too shall pass. They're not going to be toddlers forever. As they grow older, they're still going to have strong wills, but you can at least have conversations with them. You can at least craft a life together through communication that they have a say in and that they understand what you're saying and where you're coming from. With a toddler, a lot of it is simply the same as with other kids, choices with consequences on the level that they understand. Toddlers generally 1 to 3 years, their understanding is limited and their emotions run high. The important thing there is meeting them where they're at, taking breaks for yourself and laughing when you feel like crying. Like there are several things with toddlers where you could get mad or you could cry or you could laugh and be like, this is epic, right? They pooped all the way up their back. They put sink dish soap in the dishwasher and filled the kitchen with bubbles. That actually happened at our house. It's a huge, huge bonus. We chose to laugh even though it was a huge mess to clean up. Why? It beats getting angry. It beats getting sad. And recognize that you're trying to find what's going to work when what is needed most is your calming, soothing, loving presence, as well as a firm hand in establishing this is okay, this is not. This comes with this consequence, this comes with this privilege. And just starting them early as on their understanding level of getting that. So this has been Parenting for a Peaceful Home. What questions do you have about this? Let me know in the comments below. What advice do you have for any of the questions that were submitted? Also sound off below because I love it when you all interact and learn from each other. If you're wanting some guidance on how to help your children have a peaceful childhood, we've got a podcast on real love and post-childhood stress disorder. It's a book that Alicia and I read, and we did a podcast talking about almost like a book club, except for you don't have to read the book to follow along. But we talk about what we were learning from that book in our podcast. You can access that podcast on our membership site. The link is right here, so enjoy that. If you enjoyed this, I've got a whole series of parenting videos. Ask me anything about parenting. You can watch another one of those right here. And until next time, folks, keep shining. We need your light.